3:02 on Tuesday afternoon, July 16th, 2024, and I call this work meeting of the Beltrami County Board of Commissioners to order. Do we have any new employees that we need to introduce? Welcome, Sheriff.
Morning, gentlemen. I have Deputy Mason Bitker here. I'll let him introduce himself.
Welcome.
Hi, name's Mason Bitker. Born and raised here in Bemidji. Went to school at BHS here. Did a series of sports, football, trap shooting, and plan to continue a career here at Beltrami County Sheriff's Office as a deputy.
Awesome. Welcome.
Mason, related to Steve at all?
Yep, that'd be my father.
Great. I went to school with him.
Okay,
Awesome.
See ya.
Does he look as old as your dad?
I think my dad looks a little older.
Good. Welcome, Mason.
Ready.
Any future work meeting topics any commissioner wants to bring up? Seeing none, let's move right on into the Reset Program NACO Award presentation. Amanda.
I'm Jeff Lynn. I'm the Social Services Division Director with Beltrami County. I am only up here to introduce the program and introduce the person who actually does all the work. And then I'm going to get out of the way and let her do her presentation. You have the PowerPoint? Perfect. And I will get out of the way.
Welcome, Amanda.
Hi, how are you guys?
Great.
Good. All right. I don't think so. All right, just a little bit about the Reset program. Just voluntary program, me reaching out, positive support systems, setting up long-term services for them, all the resources, helping them navigate, just getting back out into the community. I'm still making referrals, creating the case plans, and just working to see that all those services are set up for them so that we can make a better life for themselves. All right, right now, I've had 71 inmates take advantage of the Reset program. I've talked to over 550 inmates in the last 3 years, approximately. Of those, 44 out of the 71 are opioid users right now. 100% of the people I've worked with are drug and alcohol users. And about 52% of the clients that I've worked with have went directly to treatment. And I work with them through treatment to provide them just extra support while they're there. As of July of 2024, I have a success rate of 55% of the inmates that I've worked with not coming back within 6 months. And these are people that typically have been in jail at least once a month. So right now, things are looking good. As of this year, I was awarded $15,000 from the public health opioid settlement funds. And with that money, I've been able to help my clients with clothing, shoes, hygiene products, phones, monthly services so that we can keep in contact with each other. Transportation fees, immediate food needs. I am going to take advantage of a training for myself to better my knowledge and what I'm doing. And then I'm also starting basic needs reset bags within the jail to help those that are being released to the streets. They will have basic needs going out with them when they hit the street. If they take advantage of my program or don't, either way. Right now, the Reset impact on the community, I'm working with mothers, fathers, employees, voters, Beltrami County citizens, somebody's hero, somebody's reason to change. And with those, I'm working hard at helping those people maintain sobriety through those connections, gaining productive citizens through employment, reuniting those moms and dads with the children, helping navigate the unknown, being that listening ear for somebody that needs to be heard, and helping break the vicious cycles that I've seen that have lasted for years. So right now, the reset program is reducing recidivism and changing lives for the better. I've had, I think one of my long-term clients has been sober now 2 years, reunited with her daughter, living here in Bemidji, driving, has a job. So there's many stories that I could tell, but I've got some good ones. And just the community connections that I'm still continuing to make. I'm getting out there trying to make my program known and make as many connections as possible. And that's about it. Right now, just helping people get those second chances, some third, fourth chances, and helping to reduce the rates of recidivism.
So our program was nominated for an award with NACO, which is the National Association of Counties. And it was awarded. So we would like to go through, have you guys come down and present her with this award, or we'll present the award. I think it's a big deal. It's a national association of counties. So, and the work is, that's the reason for the success is standing right in front of you. The key to every program is the relationships that are built and having someone that actually cares about the people they're working with. And it is clear that she cares about the people she is working with. And that is why we're finding successes. So I'll get out of the way again.
Awesome. What's going on?
My name is Ann Linseth. Seth, I'm the Director of Health and Human Services, and I just quickly want to recognize Amanda and the Reset program. I also want to recognize the leadership of the county and the county commissioners supporting this innovative project and program. Very much, Amanda.
Well, I know that you won a state award, which is awesome, and now to win a national award, it's just icing on the cake, right?
Thank you.
Congratulations and well deserved.
Thank you. Yeah, appreciate it.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
if I may, I was actually out at the the NACO conference over the weekend in Tampa, and it was, first I want to thank you for all that you do, for the community, for the inmates. I think everything that you do, really shows your commitment and dedication to the folks that you serve. So, I attended the luncheon that they did the awards, and it was pretty cool to see, Beltrami County recognized for the work that you do. A small county amongst 3,669 counties to be recognized for your efforts, I think is really commendable. And, it makes me proud to be from, Beltrami County. So thank you and keep up the good work.
All right. Let's move on to the Paul Bunyan Transit update. Leslie, is that right?
Yes.
Okay. If you want to, yeah, okay, what you pass out and get you the microphone.
Amanda's basically just all that on her own.
Yeah.
Just taking that and ran with it.
Yeah, I mean, If there's something she would have been best in category.
Oh, I see. I don't know. Let's see, are these packets or are there one?
They're correlated, so you just take one off the top. There's ridership and then a stapled handout behind it. Our copier got jammed, so I couldn't get them all together before I left.
I did. I don't think so. Oh, okay, there's two total. Okay, just two. Okay.
Yep, there's just two per. So I wasn't quite sure of what information you wanted, so I thought, well, you're probably interested in ridership, and this is just the Bemidji area. So I gave you kind of our history, 2018 and 19, we were averaging between 7, almost 8,000 rides per month. And then 2020 and COVID hit, and you can see we dropped down to about 2,000. It averaged about 4,000 a month. So we dropped our ridership in half. We've started to come back slowly, but that's with the challenge of there are no drivers to be found almost to run our routes. So yeah, if we could just, and the vehicles are very, very old. I kind of get into that in the next few pages. We're down 2 routes in Bemidji. We're down 2 routes in Roseau. Warroad, we have 1 driver there and a part-time. And Bedette, we're down a route. So based on being down 5 routes system-wide, that's gonna reduce the number of riders that we can transport. In the heading there, in 2015, just in case anybody didn't know, we were asked by the state, MnDOT, to merge with Far North, which had Roseau, Warroad, and Bedette. So we provide services in Bemidji, Roseau, Warroad, and Bedette. So we're not just local transportation. We've got 23 vehicles. 14 in Bemidji, 3 in Roseau, 1 in Warroad, 2 in Bedette. We not only provide the public transportation here, we also provide volunteer drivers for the volunteer driver program through the county. And there also we're challenged with a reduction of drivers. In 2019, we had 15 volunteer drivers, drove 1,600 clients, almost 340,000 miles. Today we're down to, in 23 we had 7, now we're down to 4 volunteer drivers. So it's pretty limited. We've almost dropped the clients by 1,000 and the miles in half. So it's hard to get people to work, let alone volunteer. So we're gonna just have to see what happens there. Our age of our buses, there's also been a shortage of buses. So the oldest bus we have is a 2008. It's got 175,000 miles on it. Our newest bus was in 2019, and that's got about 121,000 miles on it. We do have 2 full-time mechanics that have done just a wonderful job to keep those buses on the road and maintained, but it's been a challenge. We did receive buses, we were awarded to order buses in 2021, but they are now just being delivered. So in 2024 now, we're finally getting new buses. The cost of the bus we received in 2020, which was 2019 order, was $81,000. And I'm showing you there the local matches for the purchase. The county and city do provide the local match on those buses. They went from 81,000 to the 2020-21 buses delivered. We're now just getting them. The cost is 192,000. So they've more than doubled and projected. We applied now for 2025 buses and they're projected to be about 235,000. So decreased drivers, increased cost of vehicles. The state is really supporting us and they usually would in the past have asked for a 20% match. They've done all they can to try keep the burden off of the systems, the city, the county. They were able to keep the local match on the current buses at 10% instead of 20. So the cost has gone up. They've tried to keep the local match down by contributing more from state and federal. So does anybody have any questions?
Craig?
Yeah, Mr. Chair. Hey, Leslie. So the ones from 2020, 2021 that were ordered and that they're giving us a higher match on those, is it correct that it's going back down for the ones that you're just ordering now, that they're only going to give us 80% match on those, according to what you're showing here?
No. No.
That must be a typo
Oh,
then.
80% match. Yeah,
Yeah.
it just really varies per contract per
Oh,
year.
so they went from 80% and then the ones we're receiving this year, we got 90% match, but now the next ones that we're just ordering, we're only
It
going to
could
get
be back to
80%.
80, it's just
Okay.
not certain. Neither is the price. The price is just
Sure.
a guess of at a 15% increase, I think.
Okay,
It's just been all over the board. And we are, like I said, we just received a bus today, in fact, from our 2020 order.
crazy.
So, yeah, thank goodness we've had great mechanics that have kept the vehicles running. I mean, they've replaced the floors, the steps. You name it, they've fixed it. So
Thank you.
Any other questions for Leslie?
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
hi Leslie, Commissioner Gould here.
yep,
Certainly support your program and the services you provide. It sounds like you're struggling a lot, like a lot of people. I know it's a lot easier said than done to find volunteers for anything.
yeah.
I would certainly encourage and support, look at being able to somehow compensate the drivers. Transportation is vital for people to get to jobs, get to medical appointments, get to school. I would just hate for us to see this service go away. I'm just wondering what your plans are, what your goals are for the next couple of years, maybe what are some short-term goals that you have for like the next year or so? And maybe like some long-term goals, 5 years and out, as far as your overall operations. If you could speak to that for a minute or so.
We are, it's hard to look 5 years out when we don't know next week. I mean, we are so short-staffed and we're not getting applicants. We're not getting inquiries. So until we can get staffed, we'd love to have 3 more buses on the road but often by 8 o'clock, we're booked through noon. So until we can get the resources.
Mr. Chair, your majority of your funding comes from the state, is that correct?
Correct. Yep. All of our funding comes state and federal.
State and federal funding is probably 90+% of your budget.
96.
96, okay.
Mhm. Because our volunteer driver program is the other 4. So that's a very small component.
Do you belong to like any professional organization, like a transportation alliance group or a transportation professional organization where you could look to for some ideas?
Yeah, we meet quarterly with the state. We're on a TAC committee.
Okay,
So, yeah, besides other meetings that they hold. Yeah, we meet quarterly and everybody's struggling with the same issues.
right. our neighbors to the east, Arrowhead Transit, similar organization.
Yep.
I know they have similar struggles. But that being said, there are other similar organizations in the state and even the country that you could look to for some ideas on how to recruit people, obtain additional funding, that sort of thing.
Right.
So-
As far as drivers, we just obtained the ability to be able to train our own. That's been a challenge through the last few years with the what they have to go through to get that Class C license and the training behind it. So we have an approved trainer now at our facility, and our facility just last Thursday got approved. So we can now train people and bring them in. So we're hoping that'll help attract, because a lot of people would like to drive, but they don't have that license. So we just made that step to hope that if we train them, they'll come on board. But we can only train our own. We can't train outside our organization. So we've made that step. That won't help the volunteer drivers, but that might help with the public transportation.
I wonder what brings in a majority of your volunteer drivers. Is it just they have a passion for transportation and just want to do something?
They love to drive. They love to help people. You know, we've had a few hardships there with COVID. They've had family, the reason it went from 12 to 4 is they've had family members become ill. Some of them stayed at local housing that closed, so they've relocated. And they had to start being issued a 1099. Prior history was, you know, it was just basically the expense for driving. But
Do they get credit for their Class C license for hours? Like if they have a driving job elsewhere, can they get credit for these volunteer driving hours for that, for licensure renewal?
you just need a standard driver's license for it. You're just driving your own vehicle.
Well, Class D is
Yeah,
the regular license, but you need a Class C for this?
no, for the volunteer driver, no. To drive our buses, you do, and a
That's what I'm talking-
passenger endorsement, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So if they're driving buses with a Class C license, do they get to clock those hours for license renewal? Or if they're a bus driver for the school district?
They all go together, yes, yeah. And we do have a few school bus drivers that over the summer come work for us.
So perhaps that's a way to get a few more drivers, is to advertise that piece of it. Just an idea.
Yeah.
That's it, Mr. Chair. Tim?
So, Mr. Chair, can you remind me if the county is part of, if this is part of a committee assignment for the commissioners?
So I'm glad you asked that question, because it's the question that really kind of brought all this up was supposedly Craig and I were on the Paul Bunyan Transit Committee, and we'd never received a notice about any meetings to attend. And so that's kind of what sparked the questions and sparked this. And I don't know, Leslie, if you can give us any kind of a history on why we haven't been called to a meeting, or why we're just really in the dark as to.
The last meeting was in November of 2019. And I believe December, the city manager, and we had a room of about 20 people, decided there was no longer a need for the Joint Powers Board to meet. When we had meetings, we'd maybe have one person from the city and one from the county show up. So there wasn't interest in at that time, they just chose not to continue meeting.
So, Mr. Chair, I don't know if this is still a committee or not for the county, but I mean, it does kind of worry me to hear that, you know, the transit system doesn't know, you know, if they're gonna be operating next week. To me, that's concerning, you know, kind of setting off alarms, especially, you know, with the situation that happened last year with the, was it the Red Pine, you know? Is this another thing that might be brewing where, you know, we will we be losing public transportation and how this is going to affect, the families that really depend on the transit system. So I do appreciate you bringing, this forward and I don't know who was on the committee at the time to make that determination of not having, a need or a use for it. But, to me, it sounds like there's a definite need and use to try to help in some capacity.
So between the Paul Bunyan Transit and the Airport Authority, those are the two things that the city has jointly had joint powers agreements on. And so that's exactly why we need this upcoming city and county meeting to discuss these things, to determine, the Airport Authority is very robust. So I just don't understand why it wasn't robust at Paul Bunyan Transit. I don't,
Mr. Chair, is this still technically a joint powers board or is it a
Yes.
nonprofit organization now?
It's a nonprofit organization. We have our own board. The Joint Powers Board was just an advisory board. And that was put together in the beginning. When I started this position, city had a bus, county had a bus. And we were brought in to show if they put it together because they couldn't coordinate, they couldn't, swap riders. They were going to the same locations, parallel almost, that if we combined it, it would be more efficient. And that's, the Joint Powers Board was built. They did have the MnDOT contract for several years until we came to a point where they decided to let us just be the contracting party with MnDOT. So the Joint Powers Board was just an advisory, basically to come get information and bring it back to the city and county.
So if there's still a joint powers board on the books, seems to me that state law would require that board to still meet at least quarterly.
I'm not sure if that
I'll just
agreement
Make sure we're still doing that.
does exist.
Okay.
I have it from way back history wise, but I don't know as of that point in time or with the city and county where that agreement is at or dated.
so I know that Katie Knowlting is looking into that from the city's perspective. And I visited with her about that regarding my question about why aren't we meeting? And so I think that within the next, before July 29th, which is hopefully the time when we'll meet with the city, she'll have some information for us that'll be helpful. I guess I really appreciated what you had to say, Commissioner Gould, and I think that if there's anything that we can do as a county, as a city to make this a better proposition, I think we need to do that because like Commissioner Sumner said, transportation's a real issue. And so I think that, we have skin in the game. You started with one of our buses. The city has skin in the game. You started with one of their buses. It just seems like it would be logical that we dig back in and we can't be helpful if we don't know what's going on. That makes sense. But so I think more to come after we meet with the city. Yeah.
Leslie, you had any communications with anybody from HRDC, with the Regional Transportation Coordinating Council that the HRDC is doing? Have you had any discussions with anybody from HRDC?
Yeah. We've worked with them. We've discussed with them. We also have Northwest RDC
Yeah.
because of the Roseau, and Badet has our local, and then Bemidji has our local. Yeah.
Great.
So Leslie, thanks for coming forward. Hopefully in the future, we can be of some help.
Yeah, and
I think if we meet, I think that maybe that could be helpful, even like a quarterly meeting or something, and where we can find out how we can be more helpful.
Great, yeah. And I did ask about that Joint Powers Board agreement also, and nobody could really find anything on it, so.
Yeah, the city attorney, Katie Knowlting, is doing some digging, and she had some other priorities with the airport authority. And now that some of those are almost put to bed, I think she's got a little time to work on that. So thank you very much. We appreciate it. Thanks for coming today. Tony, do you want to give us a county extension update? And Frankie's with you. Hey, Frankie. We love handouts.
She's out of the garden, but I guess I'll take a.
Sorry, no brownies today. We do some baking last weekend. I should have thought ahead.
Yeah.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Tony Hansen, Regional Director with University of Minnesota Extension. Just appreciate having a few minutes on the agenda this afternoon, and most of it I'll pass over to my colleague. Just a few other updates though from the County Extension Office. I notified the Extension Committee in June, but we were able to fill our SNAP Ed Health and Wellness Coordinator position. That's been serving Beltrami County. That position had been vacant for about a year, and we had gone through a few different search phases on that, and appreciated the Extension Committee's support and engagement and hearing updates about that search as we pushed through that process. Eve Lavrens started with our team in June and has been there about a month now, and she's a seasoned veteran now that she's gotten along well with our extension team, and sincerely thankful she's getting onboarded, and we'll be moving forward with some programming here in the next couple months. So that's our exciting update. Otherwise, the extension team in general is gearing up for a county fair. I had a visit with that group here earlier this afternoon, and I'll be back here in Beltrami County later this month to share budget proposal pieces along with other department heads. If you have any questions for me, happy to answer. Otherwise, I'll turn it over to my colleague here.
I almost came to a meeting Monday morning until I read my email. It's like, oh yeah.
I almost did too. Forgot to adjust my calendar. All right, good afternoon, everyone. I've had the pleasure of meeting several of you, which is great, and having worked with you before. I am super excited to be able to be here today in front of you for the first time, actually, since my employment began last year. My name is Frankie Mord, Francesca formally, but I go by Frankie. I'm the new, no, not so new. I guess if she's a seasoned veteran, I'm just old news, but I'm the new 4-H extension educator here in Beltrami County. And I previously had worked in the same position over in Red Lake County. So I had a couple years under my belt before joining this county and being in my new dream job. So I'm very excited today, not only to introduce you to myself, but also to formally invite you to our Beltrami County 4-H showcases, which are 21 days away. And just that idea gives me just a little bit of heartburn, but you know, we are super excited and we have so much happening and so many great things planned. We've been having Monday night work nights with our youth and volunteers, and the kids are out painting fences and fixing different things in the buildings. They're helping us with some of our office tasks, and you can hear the conversation buzzing between these youth about how excited they are about bringing their livestock, bringing in their photography projects, some of the adventures that they had this year while preparing their projects. Something about a rogue goat was being discussed yesterday. So I'm really looking forward to seeing this great gathering of people in just a couple short weeks. But I also want to share some basic numbers with you as well, just to give you an idea of who our program is serving right now. We have 64 Cloverbud members, and for those of you new to 4-H, Cloverbuds are kindergarten through 2nd grade. 64 is a really great number for us. It's been pretty steady over the last 5 years. We have 254 youth, which is grades 3 through 1 year past high school, which is also very consistent with the last 5 years and actually trending upward. We're really excited to see those numbers, especially with, everyone was affected by COVID in some way, but right now we're really seeing those positive trends, which is great. And it's not just static trending upward. And we're really seeing active participation in our program. People are coming to club meetings. They're coming to our committee meetings. They're participating in our county fair. And this year,
We have 64 brand new 4-Hers. So these are first year members, and that's a phenomenal number. Last year we had 20. So we're really seeing an uptick in interest in 4-H, which is really exciting. And these are first generation numbers as well. These are people who are coming from families who have no 4-H experience whatsoever. And I'm just kind of curious of the folks here, have you experienced with 4-H or were in the program at all?
I'm a
Yes,
teacher. I
yeah.
have students that participate, so.
Sure, yeah. So it's maybe not as popular of a program now as it might have been about 50 years ago, where just about every farmer you knew was in 4-H, but we are serving a pretty diverse population here in Beltrami County as well. And we do keep track of that demographic information, which I plan on sharing during our annual CEC meeting, which is coming up here.
Next one's October.
Yeah, oh my gosh, just a few months away. Well, maybe I'll be there, or maybe I'll be on maternity leave. We'll see what happens. But we have 101 volunteers serving our program as well, which is a large number. And we actually have one of the highest volunteer numbers in the region. And we have the largest program enrollment in the region, which is the Northeast. And I'm really proud to be serving in this capacity for these families and for these kids and volunteers. With County Fair coming up, I thought it'd be kind of fun to bring you a couple numbers. Our fair entry deadline, which is our fair exhibit entry deadline, was yesterday, last night at midnight. I got a phone call at 9:40 p.m. Ringing the alarm bells, needing some assistance, but that's okay. I'm happy to help. But we have a total of 2,331 entries between all of the livestock, all of the photos, all of the arts and crafts, all of the poster boards that you'll come and see in the 4-H exhibit hall. Really great collection of things, and we're looking at a lot of projects. So we're really excited to be seeing those. And one highlight I wanted to bring up this year is our organization is all about for the youth, by the youth. And our youth brought forward this year, they wanted to do livestock interviews, which is just a comprehensive interview of their knowledge around a specific livestock species. It's not every day kids tell you, hey, I want to do something really hard and I want you to test me on it. And I want to work really hard towards something. So when they said they wanted to do this, I said, okay, well, let's try it. And we have 36 kids of our membership who are going to be tackling these livestock interviews this year, a very high number. And I'm very excited about that. So we'll be conducting those interviews that Tuesday of County Fair Week. And I'm knowing our kids, they're going to rock it. And we're really excited to see their success there. But in the letter that I gave you, it is a formal introduction or a formal invitation, to a tour of our county fair showcases, specifically around 4-H. That's going to be that Friday morning, and I chose that morning specifically because we have a really cool poultry show, because who doesn't love being around a bunch of loud birds? But that'll be a short portion of our tour, and I thought it'd be a really great idea to invite you guys out to come and tour with myself, along with a few 4-H ambassadors and some other extension and 4-H staff who are going to be happy to answer your questions and give you some background around 4-H, not only in Beltrami County, but also in our region and our state. So it'll be a really great opportunity for you to see what the kids in your county can be doing, what they are doing, and what they're capable of. And it'll be about 45 minutes of the tour, and I promise a chocolate chip cookie at the end. So you can look forward to that, and that'll be from our 4-H food booth. We're famous for our chocolate chip cookies, but that'll just be a part of the reward of your visit. Really, the big thing is going to be seeing these kids succeeding in what they do best, and that is preparing for a full year for this one showcase. We have kids who are excited to show off their beef cattle to you, show off their goat projects, show off their rabbit, their poultry. I don't know if you've ever seen a third grader handle a guinea hen, but you will likely see that during this tour. But that's something really exciting to look forward to as well. And at the end, we do have some Fair Board members who are excited to introduce themselves as well and show you other portions of the fairgrounds if you're interested. We're not the only ones at the fair, but we do love sharing that space with those folks. So we would love for you to visit with all of us while you're there. And you can always go to a food vendor or two while you're there. You never know. But anyways, with that, I'll wrap up and thank you for your time. And if you have any questions, I'm happy to attempt to answer them while I'm here.
Thanks, Frankie.
Thank you. Frank.
Thank you.
Great job.
Mr. Chair, I was,
We need to get going.
yeah, well, gotta get going. We got a minute. We're only 2 minutes.
Okay.
Well, that's fine.
Danielle, you want to enlighten us on the quarterly jail project update?
Good afternoon, commissioners. It's nice to be here again. In the packet, you'll see the updated budgetary numbers and schedule, as well as some updated renderings. So before we get through into the renderings, I'm going to hand the presentation off to Larry and Pat to go over the updated budget and schedule.
Thank you. Good afternoon. Well, we'll start off by the estimate. This is our design development estimate compared to the schematic design estimate we presented back in, I think, April it was. A little bit different format on this one in the fact that the earlier one, we did reach out to some contractors and targeted some assistance as far as some input. On this DD phase of it, we probably had 90% input across the board on different packages within this estimate. The number that we were really working on, if you can see the 68,424,000, that's the construction estimate. Oh, sorry, we flipped the page, maybe you can.
Oh, there you go.
There it is.
I thought Tom was doing that.
Which is supported by, I don't know, 30 pages of detail estimate, including contractor input. Within that estimate, we had some items go up and some items go down. Some of the big items, roofing went down because we changed to a ballasted roof. Precast went up and masonry went down, and we did that purposely because of some of the sequencing and trying to find an efficient build instead of waiting for maximum security CMU walls to be built in order to bear precast on. We switched some of those over to precast. So we're going to basically be limited to a couple trades on site to start this building off. And that's going to be our precast contractor after the foundations are in and our steel erector. So sequencing between those two, got about 10 mobilizations around that site. That building can be erected and we can start roofing and some of the other contractors following it right behind. So there was some purpose behind it. With that, the steel went up a little bit to offset some of the masonry that went down. But overall, you know, we're about 400,000 on the construction aspect. I think 397,000 you can see as far as the savings applied to the existing jail facility. I think the one back in April, we were in that 70,000 range. So we're a little over 300,000 to the better side. That actually added some
The overall project budget.
overall project budget, that is. So anyways, we're here for any questions in regards to the estimate. We got as much detail and backup as you want to ask.
Craig?
Yeah, I just, the number on the building construction cost, 68 million, I don't know, maybe it was just wishful thinking that we would stay more in that 63 million range, which is what I think when we met at Carl Sanderson's office here months ago with John and I and Administrator Barry and I'm pretty sure it was 63 something million at that time. And that's a 5 million more.
Well, part of that 63, that was just for the building only. It did not include the site.
Okay.
So
Or the
there was to go
FF&E.
back, the original one with the site and everything was in the 66,500,000 in that ballpark.
Okay. So,
What's the FF&E?
Plus, then you have to add the FF&E
Yeah.
into that.
but that FF&E isn't in that number, is it?
Yeah,
Is it?
it's over 2 million.
There's two different types of FF&E. You got the jail, some of the jail components, the fixed detention stainless steel
Mhm.
that are within, and then you also got the loose furniture, desks and everything else that would be outside of that.
Right.
So the biggest impact is what Pat said. It had to do with the site, or your earlier number you talked about. But if you're comparing apples to apples, you know, when we came back here, SD back in April, we were at 68,860,000. We're
Yeah.
down about 400.
In April, yeah. But prior to that, the one that Pat was talking about, we were probably a couple million higher than that.
That was the original preliminary budget.
Right,
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah.
So just want to try to keep our eye on the price and keep that as much a buffer because I'm sure there's going to be stuff that's going to come up that'll, you know, we want to make sure that 400,000 grows to an even bigger number if possible, whether it's design and not on the design team, but obviously want to try to, you know, and plus we don't know how much it's going to actually take to do the old jail. We don't know for sure what's in task for that yet. So the more we can trim this, the better.
Yep, no, I'm very, very well aware that try to get this in and every stage gets a little more detailed. The good thing is we're trending in the right direction. So,
And, you know, some of that back of the subcontractor input, we got, you know, some of the even spec sections, we got two bid numbers for referencing back and forth. And come on bid day, you know, because it's a large project, we're gonna get interest from pretty much the entire state plus North Dakota to go back. You know, we expect 3 to 5 bids minimum in each category. Some of them, you know, masonry might only get 2 just because there's not a lot of masons around, you know, so some of those major categories like mechanical, electrical, those, the big hitter ticket items, you know, we will have multiple bids in those categories.
and I also think going back to that timing question, when this was, you know, it's a spring start bidding this year to lock up work for next year, I think the bidding environment is going to be favorable, which tends to see it in the numbers. You're locking up a nice chunk of work for a spring start of 2025.
What's your anticipated date for being able to issue the GMP?
Well, let's flip the page here.
October
Okay.
15th.
Okay.
My birthday.
Yeah.
So give me a birthday present.
Any more on the estimate or?
Yeah, that was actually kind of
Okay.
blending right into what I was getting to as far as the, you know, wondering how this number will compare and what, you know, the GMP or guaranteed maximum price, GMP, how that number will, if that's going to come from this number or if that gets massaged and padded and that erodes our $400,000 buffer right now, or.
No, I mean, I think, you know, a lot of it, you know, we're gonna go through bid tabulations, so we're gonna have bids for every work scope.
Okay.
So you have those true numbers in the GMP, you know, and some of the stuff, you know, like our fee, which has already been locked in to go back at, you know, 1.625%, so that's, nothing's gonna change on that. The reimbursables per month have already been locked in, you know, negotiations with town and county on that. You know, then you have some of your general condition items, so there's really, you know, you have the contractor contingency, but no, I mean, as long as numbers come back favorably on bid day, then that number is gonna go down. You know, and also one thing to include in that number too is we're still carrying a 2% design progression contingency, you know, which is like around $1.3 million. So obviously, once that gets reduced down to 0, you know, so we are still carrying that buffer. So if there's any design changes over the next few weeks, that kind of gets incorporated, you know, gets lessened.
Yeah,
Is that-
we're still not obviously working with final drawing. We're working on a DD set
Yeah.
that are probably 6 weeks old for as far as an estimate goes here. So, and I know there's some changes that are actually trending in the right with some reductions and stuff that I'm sure Danielle will go through, but to flow into your next question in regards to your timing and milestones, I know the plan is still going out for bid in early August here, with receipt of bids in mid-September. So you're looking at that GMP, you look at that, you flip over to that October 1st date, you know, review bids, award recommendations. We're gonna have a pretty good handle of where we're sitting on that date. And we're may collectively talk that maybe between the 10-1 and the 10-25, we shorten that up so we can get these contracts out for some of these subs, so we can utilize this off season to, you know, pre-cash shops, detention. There's some long lead items here that we need to really dial in and work through, so.
And I think the preference of kind of blocking up in a couple of different meetings, which we can compress that, would be like on October 1st is we're coming to go through all the low bids. Maybe somebody on us low, that maybe is barred to do county work. I don't know. But that could be that option. You guys don't want to use that guy, so you want to go to the second place for whatever reason that may be. So that could impact cause our GMP to go higher. So that's where on that October 1st would be on that, which we'll know the number. And we'll finalize that for the October 15th meeting.
Why do we have that October 25th as the acceptance of the guaranteed maximum price? Why wouldn't we have that just on the October 15th?
Where we're talking that very thing that I can see some of those being merged.
Yeah.
I mean, when the number's ready and combined and have a clear picture, that's the date. I mean, to me, it's the 1st, 15th, 25th could almost end up being in one meeting if everything's clear cut on the bid day.
We wouldn't normally have a meeting on the 25th, so
Okay.
we only have 2 meetings a month. The first and the 15th would be our 2 October meetings.
Well, then let's scratch the 25th off right now.
Yeah, that's it. Yep. And then after that, so kind of the next steps after that is once we get the GMP, then we issue all the subcontracts and start the process, all the submittals, long lead items, get it procured, and then we would essentially get the notice to proceed, because that's when the clock starts ticking, you know, as far as the 24 months of completion to go back. So we'd like to get that notice to proceed right when we know we can break ground, because if we start the notice to proceed in November, well, then we're gonna have a lot longer construction durations, so we'll start that notice to proceed when we can actually, Mother Nature allows us to, which, so. You guys can tell us that.
I take it that answered your schedule question?
Thanks, Larry.
Yep. So,
Any other questions at this point before they move on? No? Okay.
all right, thank you.
All right. I think it's worth noting too with the schedule is that we will have a state plan review process. So once we do issue the documents for bidding, at that same time, we'll submit to the state so we can get in the queue right away. Because that process is dependent on how many folks are in line before us and before we can get that plan review process going. So I think timing wise, that's part of the reason why we wanted to start in the spring as well.
Right now, last couple of projects has been taking about 22 weeks. So. I don't expect that to stop.
All right. All right, updated site plan, a couple of items of note that have changed since you looked at the site plan before. We did shift the building slightly, and the goal of that was to make certain that we had sufficient future expansion capabilities, especially when it came to housing units. And so we've blocked out the space for the housing units in relation to any utility easements or setbacks, as well as identifying a future expansion for the administrative areas, if that were to be of a need in the future. The other item of note is the staff parking lot has been readjusted and basically straightened out. So that is more a linear path and than it was before. And so I think a lot of it had to do with reviewing snow removal and just the logistics of how that parking lot would be maintained. Any questions on the site plan? Updated floor plan here. A couple of things that have changed. The maintenance garage was added based on the feedback that we got from you folks at the last meeting. So that's been incorporated in the receiving area on the north east side there. The rest of the facility hasn't changed significantly. The only reduction we made was in the training room. We were reviewing the specific space needs in there in regards to the needs of the space, as well as looking at overall square footage. So we are currently at 96,445 square feet total. Any questions on the floor plan? All right. Okay, few aerial images just showing the updated model rendering. You can start to see we have reduced the front entry vestibule. So we can start to see that as we go through the other images. But when looking at the staff parking lot straightened out. We've got the back of house generator. All right, so we can start to see here the entrance vestibule was really brought down. I think that was a big question mark before. And so really fine-tuned the volume of that, but still maintaining a presence of a front door. You can see the walk up here. So we still have a canopy cover for folks that are approaching. Just another view from the back parking lot. All right, so the interior. So what we've updated is really colors, and we've started to pick out materials and just really starting to render the actual paint and color of all the spaces. So you can see the difference from what we showed you guys before was we've got wood grain in the wood doors, for example. We're starting to show some accent paint and some wood trim here. Another view from the public lobby. This is the booking area. Starting to, again, show paint strategies as well as identify all the casework and Trying to think of what else in this area, which is really brightens things up with the colorization.
Bigger than today's booking area, isn't it, Flandra?
Maximum unit here, not much has changed except for we've added some paint. Medium unit, so the differences you can see, so there's carpets, just really softening it up. Minimum day room unit, this is a 60-bed unit, so it's direct supervision. We're identifying in the documents all of the video visitation stations, all the telephone locations, tablet chargers, all of those things that will be needed in this room. This is the mental health circulation area. So you can see off to the left, there's a circulation up to the second level, and off to the right is the circulation path up to the staff post. But you can see beyond, there's a day room. This is a view from the upper area. And so what you can see is we're differentiating between floor color and transitions so that we can help the facility give some wayfinding, and so a do not cross zone, for example, in their procedures for inmates. This is within one of the mental health units. So you can see the furnishings are molded plastic. They're fully detention grade and ballasted with essentially sand, so they can't be picked up and thrown, but they're a softer feel for those mental health unit needs. This is a view from the medical area. And so you can see we don't have doors in the exam spaces. We have draw curtains. Helps with the safety and security of the space within the exam area. And I think this is the last one we have of the recreation space. Identifying padding and acoustical panels within the space. I think that one's it. So any questions on where we're at in rendering or modeling?
Guess we're good to go.
Yeah, all right.
Thanks,
Yeah,
Danielle.
thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks. Thank you.
Bye.
Tom, are you teeing this up, or do we want Katie to just tee this up? Katie, you wanna? Okay. We'll move on to Airport Authority Joint Powers Resolution, and welcome Katie Nolting, City Attorney and Airport Authority Attorney,
Coming.
and Kyle Christensen.
I told Kyle he had to come with me.
Yeah, that's good. That's good for him. He needs it.
You'll be happy to know I want absolutely nothing from you today. Isn't that great? How often does an attorney come to you and say they want absolutely nothing? Doesn't happen often. Basically, what you have in front of you is just a memorandum with a clean copy of the current joint powers resolution. It's not an agreement, it's a resolution. It's really weird. And then you have a copy of the amendment or the proposed amendments from the Airport Authority in regards to amendments for the joint powers resolution. We can make it an agreement so it sounds a little bit easier flow between the city and the county for the Airport Authority. This is something that the Airport Authority worked on for 3.5 hours at a work session. So there's a lot of work that went into this, a lot of thought went into this by the Airport Authority. We went over this very quickly at the council meeting last night. Really, it's just to get it in front of you, let you talk as a body before you come together for a joint meeting with the city and the county. And if you have questions, we can happily answer them. But really, the one main thing I want you to know is you don't have to have any of the recommendations from the Airport Authority. The agreement is between the county and the city. But what the authority did was make recommendations based on what they think would make the airport run smoother and honestly, what they're kind of doing right now. They did find one typo that I missed. On the first change, I missed In subdivision 2, I missed one change from a 3-year to, it should be a 1-year. So we'll get that changed up, because the whole goal is to change it from a 3-year term appointment to a 1-year. Because that's really what both the city and the county are doing anyway. So it just makes it easier also with the fact that 3-year terms, sometimes you could have someone who's either chooses not to run again or isn't reelected, and now you're in the middle of a 3-year cycle. It could throw things into change. So that 1-year term allows maybe an alternate to just be able to move up and make things a little bit cleaner. But it is a lot to digest. It's a lot of changes. The only change that I would highly advise needs to be made is in regards to the Board of Adjustment for airport zoning. That's what really started all of this, because right now, custom airport zoning is currently with the Commissioner of Transportation. If it's approved on the first run, then we would need to change the joint powers agreement to have the Board of Adjustment be what's indicated in the ordinance and what's approved with that custom airport zoning. So that's the one thing that I would highly advise that needs to be at least amended. Anything else is just recommendations from the airport authority and something that can be discussed between the city council and the county board. But if you have questions, we're happy to answer them.
Any questions for Katie or Kyle?
So, Mr. Chair?
Yeah.
Is there anything that the county board and the city council would still have to sign off on separately other than the authority itself? Like if a certain project comes up or whatever?
And there's a big change to that section that's recommended. If you go to section 8, specifically subdivision 4, the big change there is currently the agreement indicates that by mutual agreement, the city and the county can approve private economic development at the airport if it's for airport purposes or is compatible with airport purposes. The recommendation from the airport authority is to take that out completely and basically allow the airport authority to make those decisions. What it also has in here is that the city and county can construct upon a mutual agreement any government building. Right now, the airport authority would only have the ability to have say in regards to design of the building and location. As long as it meets the qualifications of the FAA, has to fit within the guidelines of the grants and everything else like that. The change there is the airport authority is recommending that it be a mutual agreement between the airport authority, the county, and the city. We talked about hypotheticals of if the county wanted to put a shed to store road salt on airport property where it wouldn't be a matter of it's not going to interfere with airplanes, runways, anything like that. Maybe it's also for use for the airport and they can use the salt as well. Things like that. We may have to do some land releases. That's a whole nother topic, but ultimately there may be some discussions in regards to that. Currently, the airport authority would have no ability to say, you can't do that. It would come down to the FAA saying, you can't do that. What's unique about the airport authority is the airport authority does not actually own the real estate. The city and the county jointly own the real estate 50-50. The airport authority owns all the property, the buildings, things like that, but the actual real estate property is owned 50-50 by the city and the county pursuant to the joint powers agreement, which sometimes makes things really interesting.
That was a good question, Joe. Thanks. Any other questions? Well done, Katie.
Dang, that was easier than I thought.
Well,
I
I
got
guess
more questions last night.
the point I think is that we have we have a chance to digest this. And then, if we do in fact have our joint meeting on the 29th, I guess that's when that'll all get ironed out if there is any, so.
Yep, and just for process of amendments, it's in the memo as well. But it first has to, once everything's ironed out and we think we have kind of what the city and county both agree upon, it needs to go to the airport authority. They have to do a public hearing. Then it comes back to the city and county that have to do a joint public hearing. And then both the city and county separately can pass it. So lots of public hearings, so lots of public input.
So I just want to offer my thanks to Katie for doing, it was a pretty heavy lift on this to get this cleaned up, because of the joint, airport zoning board, and the submittal to the state MnDOT. And it was kind of complicated because some of the things weren't meshing exactly right. And so Katie did yeoman's work on putting that together, and I wanted to thank you for that, Katie. Tim, do you have a question?
Mr. Chair, if the time allows, I was wondering, has the county attorney reviewed any of this? I see that it got clearance from the administrator, so I'm just wondering, does the county attorney have?
Yeah, I don't see Mr. Hanson, but he was given the information
Okay.
to review as well. And there's no action tonight as
Yeah.
we talked about, so I don't know if he's completed that review, but he'll be ready on at least by the meeting on the 29th or earlier for any additional concerns or those types of things that might come up.
Okay, thank you.
One of the questions I have too, that, I think that's important for
Yeah.
us.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And I would say if anyone has any questions, call me. Call me in between before the 29th, because there's a lot of information in here and there's a lot of changes. And I was having discussions about what the definition of private economic development was and what would fall under that and what couldn't. I mean, this is a big deal and this is important. So we want to make sure everybody understands it and is comfortable with it. That's why we wanted to make sure you had it in front of you and had time.
Do you anticipate getting together with the county attorney prior to the city county meeting just to kind of touch bases on that? And if you haven't, I would encourage you maybe.
And I can absolutely reach out. I know we're talking on other things on data practices and things like that. So I can absolutely reach out to him and say, if you've got questions, and I'm happy to sit down and talk with him on it. Absolutely.
Tom, go ahead.
Might be good for you to do that, to reach out to him and probably be more efficient and effective instead of him having to just take it. If you could kind of explain where stuff's at and run through it quicker with him.
Tom, did you have anything yet you wanted to add to that?
I don't have anything at this moment to add. I've just maybe encouraged upon your review. There are some authorities that are being placed into the airport authority's purview that the county may want to take an additional look at. Since it is a joint powers agreement between the city and the county, you may just want to evaluate your comfort with, essentially giving away some of that oversight to the airport authority. Might be entirely appropriate, might be something also that you want to at least give a second thought to as well. So that's what I would draw your attention to in the agreements is I think there's some great changes and a lot of really good improvements. But you'll also want to think about a number of different possibilities that could, sort of creep up in the future, and how those may or may not be influenced by some of the changes that are being requested here.
And I would agree with Tom. I mean, really the discussion I was having as well with my counsel is you can't write the agreement for a commission or an authority that's really, really communicative with the council and the county and say, okay, you can have all of this, but you can't also write it to where they're not communicative and you want to have all the power and control and you want them to constantly report to you. You have to find that middle ground where it's comfortable.
Richard?
Mr. Chair, I think also the fact that we're representing all the people of Beltrami County, and to give away some of that power, so to speak, to an agency, we could easily have people say, well, who are they? Or why did you give that away?
So I think it's good to look at.
Excellent. Anybody else? Great job, Katie. Kyle, good job. How's your first 2 weeks on the job been? Bruce?
Good afternoon, Commissioners. The topic I have for you is our township road maintenance agreements. We put this into place last year. And at that time, initially, I had proposed using a per mile rate structure. Then that got some big pushback from the townships after they took a look at what that would cost them. And then the board stayed with the hourly rate structure. I believe at that time there was some openness to consider or look at that per mile rate structure in the future. I guess that's why I'm here, to see if there's still that openness to consider a per mile rate structure for the work that we do for townships. We do quite a bit of work, summer blading, winter blading, and then even some engineering and some other work for townships. But this would just be for that summer and winter maintenance that we do on their roads. Again, for the highway department side of it, and why we're requesting a per mile rate structure, really it's for the efficiency on our tracking. A township has 10 miles, we're gonna maintain 10 miles. We have a rate, it's one invoice, one bill for us to send them, a lot easier to do versus the hourly rate structure. For that, our guys out there doing the work have to keep track of how long they're working on those township roads. They got to enter it into an accounts receivable slip. It's got to go into our time sheet. It's got to get reviewed by office staff. And then it's also got to be put into our billing software. And then has to send out invoices monthly and make sure that we're getting those back. And so on the operations side, it's just a lot quicker for us if we could do a per mile rate structure. And it is also, I believe, would be a lot simpler for a township to know, we got 10 miles, here's what our rate's gonna be. And so there is some efficiencies for us, and that's why I guess I'm wondering if the board is still open to that. And if so, what kind of information would be useful in helping make that decision if we were to make that switch? I mean, I could throw out there some what I would believe, some potential rates, some justification of what we would use for a rate, what the township past costs were and what the potential costs for them going forward are. But I guess I just wanted to kind of get some direction from the board before putting some time into this.
Yeah, Craig.
Hey, Bruce, I think one of the big issues was that there was a pretty huge delta, I think, last time around. The rate structure that was being proposed per mile increased their costs significantly, double, triple, quadruple, even in some cases, I think. And that was, I think, one of the biggest reasons for the pushback. If we could look at, what are their, how much does it typically cost in time to do the work, and a blading versus plowing is probably different, but what, if you could show that and have it so that it wasn't a huge lift for the townships to switch, if it's easier for us to do and we can have it be pretty much a level move, not a huge increase in cost for the townships, I think it would be a lot easier to swallow.
Richard?
And the other thing is the fact that whatever we do, if there is even if there's somewhat of a change, their budget setting is in March, not in the fall. And so I think we have to take that into consideration.
Yeah, I remember the timing was bad or short for them. And so that's why I'm here now.
Yeah.
Tim?
So, Mr. Chair, is there anything in state statute that says that we have to maintain? So if the township wanted, they can go and hire a private business and I'll be obligated to pay their rates regardless, whatever they negotiate, they could be higher or lower than what the county rate is, so. I would be open to it, depending on what those rates might be. So, I mean, if we can see some numbers, I think that would make my decision, a lot easier than.
Yeah, but see, here's what the township on a spreadsheet, here's what they've been paying for the last few years. And here's what the new rate would be equivalent roughly, for plowing versus lading. And, some townships don't do both, I don't think, but you give them a discount, I think, if they do both, don't you? On their current rate or not?
Not currently.
Oh, you were going to on the.
We
new
were
rate.
going to.
Yeah. And so, just, if you could throw it in a spreadsheet, I know it's probably a fair amount of work for you, but you could throw it in a spreadsheet and get it out to us so we know what they're looking at, and so we can get that out to the township so that they can have some forewarning on it. That'd be great.
What do you see as the ideal window of timing so that it's the most appropriate for the townships to be able to adjust their budgets or to make a decision, maybe go private contractor instead of county? Would we want to have a decision by what, November, December? I mean, and then when do you anticipate it taking effect? Because if they're not meeting with their annual meetings until March, that's when they're going to set their budget.
That's when they set their levy, yeah.
So with that in mind, we wouldn't want to do anything that would raise their rates until after March.
Unless it didn't significantly raise their rate,
Well, and they discuss it in February or January, so it needs to be,
should be done by the end of this year.
So currently, we adjust our rates when the county board sets the rate structure across the county. It's one of those what's that form called?
Fee schedule?
Fee schedule. It's in there. And so that's currently how we do it. And so that's approved at the end of the year with kind of your budget process or public hearing. And so there are some changes or a little bit of impact to a township, from January to March before they're setting their budgets, but hasn't been big changes like you had said.
So I'm guessing this obviously has an impact on your budget. So you probably want to get this done sooner rather than later so that for your budget for next year, right? Is that?
I have not considered this in our budget,
No.
but it's,
Okay.
to me, it's more of a long term. If it's along the lines of if it's not a significant change up or down, then it's not a budget.
So there's not a
Positive or
rush with
negative.
regard to our upcoming budget.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think we all agree that we'd like to see more.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Bruce. Tom, you want to talk about the joint city and Beltrami County meeting?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. Good afternoon.
What time? Not with the whole cannabis thing going on? Is that what you're saying?
Now that
What, a
that's the
joint
topic of
meeting?
discussion.
Collaborative.
We could call it the special meeting.
There you go.
That's really what it will be advertised as. So as you know, kind of behind the scenes, I've been working with you and also the city manager and staff to try to put together a joint city county meeting or a special meeting. And the reason for this has been kind of ongoing. Last year we tried this and unfortunately we're unable to make it work. This year, there's been some issues that have come up that also make it timely for us to have this conversation with the city. I put a list of topics potentially available to you and have floated this list also by the city. And the feedback I'm getting from the city managers that the city council seems amenable to the same list. In fact, a couple of the items ended up on our list from the city council. Of course, what we're looking at here, as I've been mentioning, is Monday, July 29th, about a 3-hour meeting starting at 5 p.m. And hopefully wrapping up at 8 p.m. or so. They have agreed to hold the meeting in this room. That will allow us to do the live streaming and recording and all that stuff. We'll set the room accordingly. One of the big drivers for this meeting has been what you heard a little earlier in the discussion today on the agenda, and that was the airport authority adjustments. So the bylaws, as well as the joint powers agreement, need to be enacted on by both the city and the county. And we felt it was appropriate for us to just have a joint conversation about those changes, and you don't have to make any agreements at that evening. You don't have to make any motions or that sort of stuff. But really just kind of get a meeting of the minds, so to speak, both on the city and the county perspective. As you know, we've got cannabis permitting on there, Paul Bunyan Transit, for the reasons that were also brought up today, kind of figuring out how to maybe revive the joint powers meetings and get maybe a little bit more influence and oversight of the organization there. Judicial Dish number 2 is one that we still have on the list that both agencies need to work through. And then there's a number of other things here that are on the list. I won't go through maybe all the rest of them, but what I might recommend in the time that we have available is for you all to either first of all confirm that the agenda looks, as you intend or would desire, and 2, maybe to take an opportunity to prioritize it. I don't believe in the 3 hours that we're going to have that we'll be able to get successfully through all of these items. I'm also aware that in previous meetings, there has been some frustration about sort of a lack of action after the meetings. So we want to take some time during the meetings to develop an action plan, like who's going to do what, by when, on each one of the items. And that could take a little bit of time as well. One other thing I just wanted to mention is the city manager and I were talking about the possibility of just having maybe a pre-meeting with the mayor and the board chair and the 2 of us, just to kind of, set the stage and make sure we have a successful meeting, that we get the right staff available. We have some initial conversation about what might be the topics in more depth, or the issues in more depth with regard to agenda items, those types of things, just to maybe help make more efficient and meaningful the joint city-county meeting. The idea is, hopefully this will be something we can kind of do on a more frequent basis as issues come up between the agencies, which allow us to address them maybe more efficiently. So I'll stop there and stand for questions. Otherwise, I can turn it back over to you, and maybe if there's a way that you could help us prioritize and narrow the list a little bit, I can communicate that back over to the city manager. It might be something like, and this is where the board chair and also the mayor could help. If we pick our top 4, they pick their top 4, that might be the agenda. Do you know what I mean? So it might be something like that. But I'm interested in your feedback on how you'd like to, maybe narrow down the agenda and get the items that are most important discussed during the short time that we'll have with the city council members.
I think it would be helpful if we had a priority list. So all of us as commissioners, if we say, kind of like what's exactly what Tom said is a priority, so that if we, I look at that list and there's no way in the world we're going to do that in 3 hours. So and maybe it needs another meeting at some point for other issues, but I think that there's no doubt that the airport authority is probably at the top of the list, which it is. And I think that's probably the most important thing from my perspective. I think I just want to hear what everybody else has to say in terms of like running down the list. Maybe Diane, can you kind of put together what you're hearing in terms of number 1, number 2, that if you would do that, I appreciate that. I do know, I think the airport's got to be number 1.
I would agree.
That has to get taken care of. But beyond that,
I'd actually say the first 4 are fine, just in order that they are.
Mr. Chair,
yeah.
Regarding judicial ditch number 2, I would just hate to see us spend a half hour going back and forth on something like that, when I think that could be just taken care of between Bruce and Sam. Like, we really have to spend time on that.
That's a good point. It seems like a no-brainer, doesn't it? But maybe it isn't. I don't know.
It's definitely a joint city county item, but I think
Is there
those two could
contention
just,
with it? Do you know
I
what
don't
it
think,
is?
I don't think so.
I think there's just some agreements that have to be made on the judicial dish, like So I agree with Commissioner Gould. I don't believe it would take a lot of like in-depth discussion, but maybe just a policy direction that the two groups could agree on and say, yeah, we agree to this general premise, you know, put the engineers to it and let it go. That would be a good recommendation. I know that both Sam and Bruce have felt like it needs a discussion at a higher level. And I think that's really just to get that policy direction and then let them just kind of work on that. So I think we could put a short amount of time to it, but I agree. I don't think it requires much time.
It'd be good to have the city collection of garbage, recycling and that in the, you know, in that fourth or fifth position. Because that's something that obviously is a joint effort if we're gonna ever get anywhere there.
Agreed. Richard?
I think most of the rest of them are, I mean, they're important topics, but I just don't think we're gonna get through more than about 5 items personally.
Well, do you feel like the number 7 should be moved up to number 6 or?
Number 5 or number 6?
Or number
I don't know that we need to give a sale project update. I mean, they could listen to any.
That's a really good point. Is there really any need for us to be?
They could listen to our recorded stuff if they want to get an update on the jail project.
Yeah, that was one of their items that they placed on the agenda. So,
okay.
So I left it on there. I think we could probably cover that, like today's presentation that we had. We could almost just get a copy of that in its hard form. And then just at a very high level, spend 5 or 10 minutes on it and just give them that. They'll see the budget, they'll see the renderings. I think we could make that pretty quick. So
okay,
maybe that's one of the things too, as we identify priority, we can kind of say, how much time do we want to put to these as well? That would be helpful.
Right.
Mr. Chair,
yeah, Joe.
KRLS, I'm not sure why that made the list. You know, we fund it, they fund it. I'm not sure what there is to talk about there.
I don't know.
I don't know where that came. Did it come from the city or?
I think that came just from previous conversations. If that has been on the joint meeting agenda since I've been county administrator, so it was a holdover from those times. You might recall when Commissioner Lukacek was on the board and Counselor Erickson was on the board, there was supposed to be a joint committee between the city and the county to look into that. It fizzled out. So I just had that on the agenda as one of those things that was perhaps a carryover. If this board feels like,
Take it off.
yeah, we can easily take that off.
Okay.
I don't think I'd have time to get to it. Childcare and housing are both very important topics, but they're such broad topics. I just don't see how we would make any headway on them.
Those are the kinds of things that would take a lot of time too, I think. But I'm not that they're not important. They're very important, but yeah.
I did request them just because of the urgency of the 2 issues, you know, the crisis regarding both. But yeah.
What about the cannabis permitting? Is there going to be enough information and forms that, you know, make sense to have that on in the discussion?
I think the idea, at least behind that, is to just get a sense of where each organization is. As you know, we've passed a moratorium. We'll share that with them. We can also share our thinking around and opinion about number of permits in the county we may want to be wanting to issue, how that may be impacted or affected by the number of permits that the city may or may want to do. And then, of course, the statute does allow for cities and townships to essentially move their permitting process to the county. So I haven't heard that the city wants to do that. I don't imagine that they will. But, you know, at least it's another one of those talking points. So I don't know that there's a lot of conversation around this other than sort of like, hey, what are you guys doing? Here's what we're doing. Here's the plan going forward. So maybe 15 minutes at the most on something like that might be recommended if at all.
And then I'm curious about the annexation. That really doesn't have much to do with us, does it? Other than our townships that could be impacted, but I'm curious about what that's.
We don't have any say in whether the city
No, I
annexes
think
it.
that's totally.
That's between the township and the city, right?
Yeah, I just.
Is that one of their topics?
It's not. It's actually one of the commissioner's topics. So
Which one?
Yeah.
At this point.
Did does someone want to speak to why? I mean,
No.
is that yours, Joe?
I think I requested this, just because, you know, the ongoing history with Northern Township and Bemidji Township and the city. You know, I for one would like to know where this city stands as far as, their plans or no plans to further annex. You know, they've been pretty quiet last several months on if they're going to or not. And so I for one would like to hear from the city council members on where they stand on that. Because it could directly impact us eventually, you know.
If I can say it, really.
I don't know if we have a say in it, but it would be important for us to know what their thinking is at this point, you know, if it's gonna affect property tax collections, and as the commissioner that represents, you know,
City wards, yeah.
city wards,
Would you maybe want to, hearing the conversation, would you maybe want to retitle that something to the effect of, you know, water and sewer service, Northern Lake Water and Sewer Services, and get an update on that, or is,
But what they're doing isn't part of the city though.
no?
That's Northern doing their own thing there.
right?
But I know that it's come up a few times on and off, kind of behind the scenes in regard to, is there still some room for some conversation around direct connection to the city's infrastructure, absent of annexation? I don't, you know, it's not really our place to have that conversation.
I don't think that's. I
Okay,
think the city and the township have already addressed that and they're not coming together on it.
Hmm.
Why the township is moving forward with what
Yeah.
they are and
Hmm.
they've got a significant amount of money already from the federal government towards that project.
What were the four that the city came up with?
I don't know if there's a specific number, but I know the Historical Society, opioid funding, jail project update. They also agreed about the judicial ditch. And I think the garbage recycling and city collections was another one that they'd also agreed to.
Well, as much as there is importance in the childcare housing areas, I guess I would have to probably drop to the bottom in terms of those are just probably be more philosophical conversations.
Well, Mr. Chair, you know, I think those are important topics, you know, I mean, I think we have an opportunity here, you know, to really discuss childcare and housing. I mean, what other time are we gonna come together to really talk about, you know, that?
But Commissioner Sumner, that's, to Don's point earlier, where we have such an issue with not having any actionable progress.
Well, there
after we
could,
talk about it, but
there
then-
could be some actionable progress. I don't know. I mean,
Planning on the city's part and the planning commission of the county could
I
have
mean,
housing, childcare, as well.
Already stuff, you know, being done there, trying to be done.
Right.
well, trying, I mean, but I mean, like, when is there gonna be another opportunity for us to get together and really talk about it? Because when I talk to people, you know, talk to me about childcare, housing, transportation, you know, these are things that people rely on, you know. Not once have I had a conversation about, you know, the airport authority. So I mean, I'm not saying that topic isn't important, but, you know, let's talk about something where we could really have a meaningful impact, you know. You know, if we had to pick one, you know, maybe childcare. But if we're gonna prioritize what I say isn't gonna be important, and I mean, I wanna have, discussions about the airport, cannabis, transit, all that, but I mean, I don't wanna waste my time either, knowing that those are short-term goals, you know. I don't know, it's just,
Well, those are things that we need to
Yeah,
talk about,
yeah,
to
it-
come to an agreement
Yep.
to pass something.
I get that, I get that.
So hopefully we can get through those quickly and have room to talk about, more like.
Yeah, because I listened to other counties, throughout the state talking about, working with other counties on childcare, working with their cities on housing and I think about Beltrami County and I think, well, what are we doing? I want to be innovative, I want to make a difference for our people, but it's something that we're not doing that I'm hopeful that, the board would like to entertain the possibility too. So I mean, and we're not gonna get there if we don't have these conversations. So I mean, I'll be at the meeting. Just to show support, whether we get to housing or childcare, I guess it's up to the mayor and the board chair on how the agenda is presented. So that's my thoughts. Thanks, Mr. Chair.
And, I'm fine with, I don't disagree with any of Commissioner Sumner's comments, but if we could, come up with our 5 priorities or whatever the exact number is, and then maybe, if time allows, we could list childcare and or housing.
I think that's a
Who
good
else will
idea.
take place?
That's a good idea.
We could also do, I know it's easier said than done, but do another joint meeting in the future on just these 2 or 3 topics, so.
Well, Mr. Chair, I might suggest also that you reserve a little time on the agenda so that the two organizations can talk about a future agenda as well. And in really specifically, the goals of those future topics. So that way you all have alignment and some preview and maybe some motivation for another meeting on those items that you have mutually agreed upon for a future meeting.
I think, if you're gonna have a meeting, you and Tom and the city manager and the mayor and stuff, that would be something I would encourage would be to put, okay, this topic is priority number 1, and here's what we want the outcome to be. And that, or, we want to come to an agreement on a date for a public hearing or whatever it is, what's our next step to move this ball forward on each of these. If it's a cannabis thing, what is the city desiring for the number of permits and are other cities in the county gonna expect to have a permit or 2 or not? And try to come up with, okay, the total number of permits that we're hearing is gonna be 6, for the entire county, with the exception of the reservation, and things like that. So we have actionable numbers or actionable things to take away from the meeting.
Yeah, I think so.
Right now, we're talking about just nixing 11 and 12 and leaving the other ones in pretty much the order they're in, and try to get to the last 2. If we can get through some of those other ones, it shouldn't take very long, for like a jail update and for like some of the ones that we talked about. Or
I think so.
I think that would look good to me.
No, okay.
Good, Joe?
You good with that, Tim? Okay, sounds good. Okay.
Thank you all. I'll communicate that to the city manager and then I'll see if I can't pull a meeting together with us. Thank you.
Wednesday afternoons I golf, just remember that.
I'll make a note.
You golf like
I
every.
can't believe I've forgotten that, actually.
Make it a stormy Wednesday.
Oh, God, don't get out of here.
All right.
With that, Tom, you want to roll right into administrator's update?
Sure. Since I have the podium here, I'll just stand and continue. I have just a few brief updates for you. Just in regard to our fiscal year 25 budget, I'm just going to let you know, things are actively moving forward with those budgets. We're on track as we have anticipated, making good progress. All the line item budgets have been developed for the departments, and some of them have been refined and those sorts of things. We've been meeting both the auditor, treasurer, and myself with various department heads and staff members over this last week or so to try to refine those budgets, with adjustments being made as a result. We're still needing to evaluate the total impact of all of those line item budgets and the enhancements and such on the overall organization. So we don't yet have like a preliminary levy number. We don't really have a sense of where we're at. We probably will have that by, we're hoping, end of week, maybe early next week. At that point in time, as you know, what we typically will do is roll up our sleeves again. Typically, the first time out of the gate, you know, the numbers, just the needs are just so great, and the revenues just aren't there, and we know that that sometimes is a tough thing to reconcile. So we'll be going through that process again. Management team will be meeting on the budget next Wednesday. That's just for the management team to kind of come together, share their issues and concerns, thoughts, needs inside the budget, and if need be, maybe broker some adjustments in the budget to help us reconcile the overall county budget, keep the levy down, also keep rate increases and other fees and those sorts of things down as much as we can, but still provide the same level or better service. Budget committee meetings have been set for Monday, July 29th from 8 to 2 p.m. and also Tuesday, July 30th from 8 to 2 p.m. We believe that with that time, we should be able to get through most of the budget. If we can't, we'll have to come up with another time to meet again, but I'm fairly confident that we can do that. On another topic, currently things are moving forward again with the classification compensation study that the county's doing. Staff had an opportunity to attend the kickoff meeting last week, and I think we had 200 or plus employees do that. We've also recorded that and made that available to employees so they could evaluate or they could review that on their own time as well. A lot of great questions, information about how to fill out what we call the position PAQ, the position accountability questionnaire or something like that. Anyway, it's the form that you fill out to essentially identify all the skills you need, the experience that's needed, the job duties that you are responsible for, and all of that kind of stuff. And that form is critical because it goes in and is used by the firm to essentially evaluate what level of classification your position should be. And then also that gets later tied to, you know, what your market rate should be for that position as well. So this is a really critical time for the county this next couple of weeks, as the staff, you know, put a lot of time and effort into updating and inputting all of that information from their job descriptions. You know, we want to make sure that we have accurate job descriptions. There is a multi-phase approval process with those job descriptions or PAQs. They get reviewed by the supervisor and the department head, and then also HR will be reviewing them as well, reconcile any issues and stuff, and then have the firm work on it as well. So we're on schedule to have the project fully complete, we believe, by November or so. And that hopefully will position us, if all things go well, for implementation consideration sometime in January. So that's at least kind of the goal that we've got set so far. We will get preliminary results, particularly on a financial impact analysis basis. We're hoping by September or so, which we're crossing our fingers aligns well with the budget and the setting of the preliminary budget levy and the preliminary budget itself. And then lastly, I was just going to remind you that we're going to be closing county offices early on this Thursday for the all staff appreciation event. You know, we've kind of gotten into a habit of doing this every summer or so to extend our appreciation and gratitude for the staff who, of course, are the real reason that, you know, the county runs the way that it does. And so we'll have that event over in the historic county courthouse courtyard. It'll start at 3 o'clock and it'll go until 4:30. We're hopeful that you can join us. We'll have games, music, a burrito bar, a lot of socialization. So I hope that you can attend, and that's all I have for you as it relates to the administrator's update.
3 o'clock.
So I had an idea that I really wanted to float by all the commissioners. It's not going to work for this year, but that last call that the chamber put out for last call for dragon boat teams. And I thought, wouldn't it be fun if Beltrami County had a team? And maybe we could include that in our employee appreciation budget. And I just was curious if I just was out of line thinking that, or if anybody else had any ideas, because it would have to be for next year if we did it, but we could start doing some planning for that. We could even,
Training, we'll need some training, I think, too.
and I thought we had it.
Tom would do it if he puts a sail on the dragon.
Either that, or if you let me bang the drum, I'll do either of those. Yeah.
Anybody, would you be willing to spend money from the employee appreciation budget to do that? Because it would require an admission fee, I'm guessing, and then we'd probably have to allow some time off maybe for the team to go practice and whatever that takes, but
Maybe make it a work session.
a work session topic, there you go. I just didn't want to let that go because it's like top of mind right now with it coming up soon, and I even thought maybe we could have help with human services paddling against the engineering department or something like that. Maybe we get more than one team. We just sort of.
Every department.
Well, you just never know how many people might be interested if they knew that they had support of us. So are you saying it's okay to have Ann move forward with looking at that for next year? Is that a reasonable request?
I don't even know if I'm gonna be here next year.
But now you get to have a say.
I know, I.
All right, I just.
Mr. Chair, I'm glad you brought up employee appreciation things and things like that. Over the weekend, I was fortunate enough to get a massage in a massage chair, and I was thinking, you know what, I wonder if we can get something like this in Beltrami County for our staff as an incentive and motivation to
So is that
do
like
some more
employee of the
work.
month gets the chair for a month?
Yeah, something like that. And it was discounted too this weekend. Yeah.
With that, reviewing the agenda for the upcoming meeting, and any suggestions, any comments?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, we do have an issue with the items 8 and 9 that are on the agenda were tabled at the last meeting. So they couldn't be just put on the agenda again. They would have to be, a motion would have to be made and seconded and voted on to be able to put them onto the agenda. And that would have to be done in a portion of the meeting, like other business or something like that. So those.
Under additional items?
Yeah.
What you're saying?
Or something like that, they would have to be,
Okay.
a motion would have to be brought up and seconded and voted on to bring each of those back in for those to be viable. So I will not be, when I make the motion to approve the agenda, I will be removing those 2 items from the.
For
agenda.
that reason.
For that reason.
Okay, okay. Anything else?
Mr.
Yeah.
Chair, you're my- Item 7E.
7E is in Edward?
Yeah.
Okay,
The approval of 2024 PILT fund appropriations. I would like to move to the regular agenda.
okay, so that could be 11A. Does that
Sure.
sound good?
Yeah,
11A
we
for that.
technically won't have 8 and 9 there, but we can make that 11A just because it's already written
Sure.
that way.
Okay,
So the 2024 PILT.
okay. Anything else?
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
Not so sure we have to do it that way that Commissioner Gosvig suggested, because our county administrator has the ability to put forth the agenda as he sees fit, and
No, he doesn't. Not when it's been an item that was tabled. And Robert's rules that we follow state that.
if it's
Yeah.
tabled,
That I did mention to the next meeting, so.
that's
You,
great.
you mentioned to the next meeting?
Yeah.
That's
That
also.
that wasn't the way I recalled it. I know I didn't on the one that I motioned. There was nothing said about the next meeting.
I think Man, we can go back and look at it real quick. I mean,
Yeah, now you can go back and look at it, or you can just make a motion if you want to during the regular meeting to bring that item to the forefront. And it'll have to, get voted on as to whether it gets brought to the agenda or not. And then if it does, then, it's be pretty obvious if it passes that, then it's gonna pass. If not, it won't.
Just assume keep it the way it is, and if you don't want to vote for the resolutions, you don't have to.
Well, we already
Well,
tabled
I
it.
think it's I think it's more a matter of the proper protocol. And I think that would be the important thing, that we make sure we do that right.
If we'd have just postponed it, then it would have been able to come up automatically on the agenda, but because we actually tabled it, that's the issue.
So I believe that what we probably need to do is what Commissioner Gosvig said, and just make a motion to bring it off the table and then move forward with it. I think that makes sense.
That essentially accomplishes the same thing.
Yeah, it does. And that way someone can't come back later and say we didn't follow proper Robert's Rules of Orders.
Yep.
I'm trying to follow proper.
Whatever, let's roll with it.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay.
With that being said, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
We don't.
We don't. We're adjourned. We're adjourned.
We got too many motions already.
We're in adjournment.